The Line We Cross, a moral collision story. The first time I saw Jordan Reyes, he was standing at the back of my classroom with a backpack too big for his frame and eyes that didn't blink enough. There was something tight about him, like he was always waiting for something to go wrong. I knew that feeling. I'd lived it for years. New transfer, Principal White had said that morning. Moved here with his mom. Try to make him feel welcome. He didn't look like a troublemaker, but I'd been around long enough to know the quiet ones usually carried the heaviest baggage. I gave him the standard introduction, pointed him to an empty seat near the window. He nodded, didn't say a word. But when he wrote his name on his folder in thick black Sharpie, I saw it clear as day. Jordan Reyes. The world slowed down. Reyes. That name hit like a punch to the gut. I hadn't heard it in 20 years. Not since that rainy night in a liquor store off Fulton Street, when a scared, broke version of me held a gun he didn't know how to use. A name connected to a man who died with his hands up, and eyes filled with fear I still saw in my sleep. I'd buried it. Changed my name. Moved states. Put myself through college under a new identity. Became Mr. Harper, teacher, husband, father. The man people respected. Trusted. But suddenly there he was. The boy. The echo. The proof that I never truly left it behind. I stood there at my desk, pretending to check attendance while my mind went white with panic. Couldn't look at him. Couldn't not look at him. He had his father's jaw. God help me, I remembered it, his father's face, frozen in time. And now here he was, in my classroom. My world. No police sirens. No flashing lights. Just one boy. One name. And the ghost of a life I thought I'd buried deep enough to forget. I spent the rest of the day in a fog, my voice floating over lectures I barely heard myself give. The board filled with notes, the students scribbled away, but I couldn't stop glancing at Jordan. He kept his head down. Didn't speak unless spoken to. But when he did speak, when he answered a question in that low, even tone, I flinched. There was something in the way he carried himself. Calm. Controlled. Like someone raised around too much noise and forced to survive by going still. After the final bell rang, I waited until the room emptied, then opened the attendance records again just to see his full name. Jordan Luis Reyes. Luis. That was it. That was his father. Luis Reyes. The name was etched in my memory, whether I wanted it there or not. Not from a police report, or a news story. From the newspaper I'd folded and thrown in the trash the next morning. Local father shot in robbery, no suspects identified. I told myself back then it was an accident. That I hadn't meant to pull the trigger. That I didn't think the safety was off. That I ran because I was afraid, not guilty. But I'd still run. And now here was this boy. His boy. I stayed late that evening, pacing my classroom like it might give me answers. When I couldn't take it anymore, I went down to the records office, claimed I needed to verify an address for a home visit. The secretary barely looked up as she slid Jordan's student file across the desk. Inside, the standard forms. Birth date, transcripts, emergency contact, his mother, Marisol Reyes. Then I found it. A photo. His student ID picture. Straight face. Brown eyes. That same guarded stillness. But there was another photo, clipped to the back. A family picture. Jordan, younger, maybe 8. Standing next to a smiling woman and a man with his arm around them both. Luis Reyes. Older than I remembered, but unmistakable. Same face. Same eyes. The same man who bled out on the floor while I fled with $87 and a gun I ditched in a dumpster. My hand shook as I stuffed the file closed. It wasn't just a coincidence. This was him. This was the son. And the life I'd built on the ashes of another man's death just got pulled back into the fire. My wife, Lena, noticed first. "You didn't eat," she said over dinner, her eyes watching me like I was a storm cloud about to burst. Second night in a row. I forced a smile. "Just tired. Long week." She gave me a look, the kind that said I've known your lies since the day you learned to make them sound honest. But she didn't press. She never did. That was Lena. She gave you the space to tell the truth, even when you couldn't. I stayed up that night grading papers I couldn't focus on, Jordan's name standing out like a red flare every time it appeared. His handwriting was neat. Controlled. Almost too careful. I remembered when I used to write like that. In the middle of the night, I had a dream I hadn't had in years. Me, standing in the liquor store aisle, soaked from the rain, gun shaking in my hand. Luis Reyes, behind the counter, no weapon, hands up, voice calm. "You don't have to do this," he'd said. And I didn't. But I did anyway. The gun went off. It felt like someone else had pulled the trigger, but the guilt that followed, it belonged to me. Always had. I woke up gasping, shirt drenched, hands clenched into fists. At school the next day, Jordan stayed behind after class. Said he had a question about the reading. I nodded, kept my voice steady. "Go ahead." He hesitated. "You ever read something that felt personal? Like it wasn't written for everyone, just for you?" I paused, heart thudding. "Yeah," I said. "Once or twice." He nodded slowly. "This story we're reading, The Ones Who Walk Away from Omilas, it got to me. I don't know why. I knew why. A story about a perfect city that thrives because of one child's suffering? It was too close. Too real. Too cruel. Sometimes we see ourselves in places we don't want to," I told him. He looked at me then, really looked. And I saw it in his eyes. Not recognition, not yet. But something deeper. Suspicion. Like some part of him already knew the math didn't add up. That somewhere, buried under my tie and lesson plans, was a truth I couldn't outrun forever. There's a little church on the south side of town. I used to pass it every day on my way to work, never gave it a second thought. But that Friday afternoon, I parked across the street and stared at it like it might swallow me whole. The doors were open. The kind of open that feels intentional, like the place was waiting for someone who'd run out of places to hide. Inside, it was quiet. Dust hung in the sunbeams like smoke. An old woman lit candles near the altar, didn't even look at me. I made my way toward the confessionals in the back, each step heavier than the last. I hadn't been in one since I was 17. I slipped inside the booth, closed the door behind me. Wood creaked. The screen on the wall lit up softly. A voice came through, older, gentle. "Bless me, Father, for I have sinned," I said, voice dry as gravel. "How long since your last confession?" "Long enough to make this one count." There was a pause. Then, "Go on, son." But I couldn't. The words sat on my tongue like glass. How do you say it? How do you admit that the man sitting on the other side of that screen might be the only one who hears the truth before they bury you under it? "I hurt someone," I finally said. "A long time ago." "Are you seeking forgiveness?" I didn't answer. Because I wasn't sure. I left the booth 15 minutes later without ever saying his name. Without naming mine. Coward. That's what I told myself. You want to be clean without getting your hands dirty. That night, I went home and sat in my garage for 2 hours with the engine off, just staring at an old shoebox tucked on the top shelf. Inside it, a letter. Half written. Been sitting there for years. Addressed to Marisol Reyes. I pulled it out. Grabbed a pen. And started writing. "You don't know me, but I know you. I know your son. And I know your pain. Because I caused it. The words poured out like blood from a reopened wound. I wasn't sure I'd ever send it. But for the first time, the truth was on paper. And paper doesn't forget. I came home late that Monday. Lena was already in bed, our daughter asleep down the hall, the house humming in that still way that feels too calm to trust. I slid the letter into the back of my desk drawer, under a stack of old report cards and tax forms. Out of sight. For now. I told myself I just needed more time. To think. To prepare. But the truth? I was stalling. Trying to find a way to tell the truth without losing the life I'd built on top of it. The knock came Tuesday morning. I was drinking coffee in the kitchen when I heard it, 3 short raps at the front door, too precise to be casual. I opened it, expecting a student, a neighbor, maybe a lost delivery. But it was him. Travis. He hadn't aged well. Gaunt face, leather skin, a crooked toothpick hanging from the corner of his mouth like punctuation on a bad idea. I hadn't seen him since the night it all went down. "Well, I'll be damned," he said, looking me over. Elijah Harper. Hiding in plain sight. I stepped outside and shut the door behind me, heart already hammering. "What are you doing here?" I asked. He smirked. "Heard you were doing good. Teacher. Family man." I almost didn't believe it. "You shouldn't be here." He leaned in close, voice low. "Relax. I'm not here to blow up your world. I'm here because I need something." I knew that tone. Same one he had the night he handed me that gun and said, "It's just a scare tactic." "I've got people asking questions," he said. "About Reyes. About you. About me. And if anything surfaces, I go down. So do you." I didn't say a word. He pulled out a folded piece of paper, my letter. The one I wrote to Marisol. "You really thought this wouldn't find its way out? Paper trails, man. You should know better." I felt the ground tilt under me. "You've been in my house?" He shrugged. "Just took a peek while you were out saving young minds. Listen, I don't care what kind of guilt trip you're on. But if this gets out, we both burn. So here's what you're gonna do." He stepped in close, breath sour and sharp. "You're gonna drop it. Shred that little confession of yours. And you're gonna keep playing Mr. Clean until I say otherwise. Or I make sure that boy knows exactly who put his father in the ground." Then he walked off, like it was just another Tuesday. And me? I just stood there. Realizing that hiding from your past is one thing. But being owned by it? That's something else entirely. That night, I sat in the backyard under a broken porch light, staring at the trees until they blurred into the dark. Lena came out quietly, wrapped in a blanket, and sat next to me. She didn't ask anything at first. Just handed me a mug of tea and looked up at the sky like it might offer us an answer. "You're not here with me," she finally said. "Wherever you are, it's not here." I swallowed hard. "I made some mistakes, Lena." She didn't blink. "That I already know." I almost told her everything right then. Almost. But something in me held back, not because I didn't trust her. But because I did. And I wasn't sure if I could bear the look in her eyes after the truth came out. The next day, I found Jordan sitting alone in the library during lunch. He was flipping through a book but not really reading. Just turning pages to keep his hands busy. I sat across from him. "Mind if I join you?" He glanced up, nodded once. "I read your essay," I said, quietly. "About your father." He stiffened a little, guarded. "Yeah? You said you never really knew him. That all you had were stories. Photos. Things people told you." He gave a slow shrug. "You ever notice people only talk about someone's good side once they're dead? I don't want lies. I just want the truth. That hit harder than I expected. Because for the first time, I realized something. Jordan wasn't just a threat to my secret. He was living in the shadow of a story no one had finished telling him. I think, I said carefully, that sometimes, people don't tell the whole truth because they're afraid it might break someone. But sometimes, not telling it breaks them worse. He looked at me then, brow furrowed. You knew him, didn't you? My dad. I held his gaze. I did. There it was. The first breach in the dam. I didn't say more. I couldn't. Not yet. But that night, I opened the drawer, pulled out the letter again. And then I picked up the phone. Travis answered on the second ring. I'm not playing along, I said. If the truth comes out, it comes out. There was a long pause. You sure about that? He said, voice low. I looked down the hallway, where my daughter slept in her room. No, I said. But I'm done being afraid of it. Because when it came down to it, I had two choices. Keep living behind the lie. Or face the wreckage. And I'd spent 20 years walking the line. It was time to cross it. It was raining when I asked Jordan to stay after class. Not a thunderstorm, just that slow, steady kind of rain that makes the world feel honest. Like it's trying to wash something clean. He looked uncertain but didn't argue. The other students filed out, backpacks slung over shoulders, the door swinging shut behind them with a soft click that felt a little too final. I closed my grade book. Sat on the edge of the desk. There's something I need to tell you, I said. He raised an eyebrow. This about my essay? No, I said. It's about me. And your father. That stopped him cold. I saw it happen, the wall behind his eyes go up, fast, but not fast enough to hide the flicker of fear, or curiosity, or both. I wasn't just someone who knew him, I said. I was there, the night he died. His jaw tightened. You mean the robbery? I nodded once. I was there. I was the one who, I had to pause. Saying it out loud felt like pulling shards of glass out of my throat. I was the one who pulled the trigger. For a second, he didn't react. Then he stood up, fast, the chair screeching back across the floor. You think this is some kind of joke, he said, voice rising. No. God, no. I've lived with this every day since. The guilt, it's eaten me alive. He stepped back, like the sight of me made him sick. You're telling me you killed my dad and then became a teacher? I was 17. I didn't go there planning to hurt anyone. I was scared, stupid, desperate. I thought, I stopped. It doesn't matter what I thought. I ran. And I've been running ever since. He shook his head. So what, you tracked me down to say sorry? Is that supposed to make it better? No. I didn't know you were his son until you showed up. But when I found out, I couldn't lie to you. Not anymore. He stared at me, fists clenched, breathing hard. Then he said the one thing I wasn't ready for. You owe me more than the truth. I nodded. You're right. He walked out without another word. And I didn't stop him. Because sometimes, telling the truth isn't about fixing the damage. It's about finally owning it. Even if it means losing everything. I turned myself in the next morning. Walked into the police station just after sunrise, letter in hand, heart pounding so hard it felt like it wanted to claw its way out. I told the desk officer my name, my real name, and asked to speak to someone about a case from 20 years ago. They thought I was lying at first. Another false confession from a man trying to cleanse some imagined guilt. But then I gave them the details, specifics only the shooter could have known. Luis Reyes. Shot once. Rainstorm. Liquor store on Fulton. Security camera out. 17 years old, gun stolen from a neighbor's drawer. They cuffed me gently. Didn't even have to raise their voices. I didn't resist. News broke later that week. Small town, big headlines. Beloved high school teacher admits to cold case killing. My face plastered across channels and screens like a villain finally unmasked. Lena didn't come to the arraignment. I don't blame her. I gave her 20 years of my best, wrapped around a lie. She sent me one letter, though. Said she didn't know if she could forgive me, but that she believed me when I said I'd changed. That she'd tell our daughter the truth when she was old enough to understand. Jordan came to the hearing. He sat in the back row, arms crossed, eyes locked on me like he was still trying to decide whether I was a monster or just a broken man. When I gave my statement, I looked right at him. I don't expect forgiveness. What I did took something from you that can never be replaced. But you deserve the truth. All of it. And I won't hide from it anymore. Afterward, as they led me away, he stood up. Just stood. Didn't speak. But he didn't look away. That was enough. 6 months later, I'm in a correctional facility upstate. I teach GED classes now. Funny, right? Still a teacher. Still trying to make something good out of the wreckage I left behind. And every now and then, I get a letter. Sometimes from students. Sometimes from Lena. One came last week from Jordan. Just 2 lines. I don't hate you. I just wish you'd told me sooner. That's the thing about the line we cross, between who we were and who we want to be. It's never clean. But sometimes, if you walk back over it the right way, you can still find your way home.